Guys, what's going on? I am Ricky. Welcome back to the channel. And boy, do I have a crazy tinfoil hat conspiracy. I'm praying it's not true story for you tonight. And I believe I have been able to tie the events in Butler, Pennsylvania, with all the things that went wrong that day to where we are currently in the political and geopolitical sphere. With that being said, I'm going to read this disclaimer. Allegedly, the content in this video is for entertainment and informational purposes only. I am discussing real-world events and sharing my own opinions, theories, and ideas. I may be filling in gaps in the story with my own speculation, which is most likely false because I am just a guy making videos on YouTube with no outside knowledge of the situation. The only knowledge I do have is what I have seen covered on the mainstream media and on podcasts and on interviews. Nothing in this video should be taken as fact. Do your own research. Think critically. Please don't sue me. And I am absolutely not suicidal. Let me repeat that again. I am not suicidal. So, now that we got that out of the way, let's add Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweet to the screen. April 19th. I'm not calling the Butler assassination a hoax, but there are a lot of questions that deserve public answers. I'm asking, why won't Trump release the information about Matthew Crooks? Did he actually act alone? If not, who is behind him and who helped him? Why the cover-up? We're going to get to that. We are going to get to that. Now, let me share my screen and StreamYard. Okay. Let me share my screen and let me play this clip from Tim Dillon's episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tim Dillon Show. We hope you are well out there. Donald Trump, our president, is embroiled in a feud with many of his closest supporters. And I think he should change the subject. I am in the minority here, but let me come out and defend Trump right now. Can I defend him? Let me defend him. I don't care if he staged the assassination attempt at Butler. I don't care. I don't care, and I think he should admit it. I think he should admit it. I should change the subject. Stop talking about Iran. Just admit you staged it in Butler. It was the heat of the campaign. People do crazy things in campaigns. I think, I'm speaking just for myself, I will not think less of you if you admit to staging and faking the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. I will be impressed by the level of coordination. Explain to us how you did it. Kind of like those David Copperfield behind that. And I know that David Copperfield had some Epstein links. Folks, that's neither here nor there. I'm trying to explain the way a magician will show you how they do their trick. I think Donald Trump should do a 1-hour special on Barry Weiss's CBS News. This is a great idea, with Barry, members of the Mossad, and Trump to discuss how they fabricated and staged the assassination attempt. Now, of course,
Well, with that being said, a real person did die that day. Corey Compatore. He was a father. I believe he was a firefighter, an American hero. He died that day. And we need to never forget the fact that he died that day. All right. So, with that being said, I want to turn to James Lee at 5149. And if you don't follow him, you should. And he did a piece last night on Butler and whether or not it was staged. And I think we should watch this. I don't pay for YouTube Premium.
And now the photographers are being moved into position. At this point, the camera angle basically stabilizes position, and then now you see the flag coming into frame, seemingly held up by this crane that you see in the top right corner of the screen. No flag, and then photographers getting in position, and then flag. Is Donald Trump a Manchurian candidate? And if so, how did they get control of a man who seemingly couldn't be controlled? And maybe more importantly, who are the ones pulling the strings?
You and I and everyone else who supported him, you wrote speeches for him, I campaigned for him. I mean, we're implicated in this for sure.
Yes.
It's not enough to say, well, I changed my mind, or like, oh, this is bad, I'm out. It's like in very small ways, but in real ways, you and me and millions of people like us are the reason this is happening right now.
Yes.
So I do think it's like a moment to wrestle with our own consciences. We'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be. And I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people. It was not intentional. That's all I'll say. But anyway, but the question does present itself immediately. Like, what is this?
If you notice, Tucker got extremely uncomfortable there, where he said he's going to be tormented by this for a long time. And he apologizes, and he got real uncomfortable and kind of changed the subject. It's a pretty big tell. I think Tucker believes everything that he just said. That's just me, but I think he was being very honest right there.
Was this always the plan?
Looking back after the last year and a half, it seems like it kind of was. And it's easy. Well, you could get really deep about it and say, what was Butler?
Yeah, what was Butler? Like, what really happened at Butler, Pennsylvania in July of 2024? Because with each passing day, with Trump looking more and more like a Manchurian candidate, doing the bidding of unknown dark forces, Butler is looking more and more like an inflection point, and perhaps, just perhaps, the biggest hoax of all time.
Tonight, former Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeting 3 times in less than 24 hours, raising questions about the 2024 assassination attempt of President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, which was so crucial to that election, including asking, quote, President Trump of all people should be leading the charge. Why isn't he? And she adds, why the cover up?
Don't you guys find it a little weird that Trump, the guy who loves nothing more than to talk about himself, has said almost nothing about the alleged assassination attempt on his life? Okay, over the past...
So let's talk about that. It is kind of weird that Donald Trump has said absolutely nothing about crooks, about the assassination attempt, about any of it. Not only that, but Joe Kent, when he was director of national intelligence, was told to stop poking around. And then Donald Trump himself shut down the investigation into Butler. Now, why would Donald Trump shut down the investigation into who tried to assassinate him? Well, you have 2 possibilities. He either knew who tried to assassinate him, and there was no need for an investigation, or he was never really going to be assassinated in the first place. And if he continued to allow there to be an investigation, there's a chance that that may have come to light. But let's go back to James's video.
Year and a half, he's weaponized the DOJ, Kash Patel's FBI to go after basically every single political enemy he can think of. But figuring out the truth about who really wanted to kill him, crickets. So today, we're going to try to figure out why. First, let's start with the facts about this day as presented by the mainstream media. On July 13th, 2024, Donald Trump was campaigning at an outdoor rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, when a 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks allegedly opened fire from a nearby rooftop. At approximately 6:11 p.m., a bullet grazed Trump's right ear, leading to a chaotic scene where police snipers eventually killed the gunman after 8 rounds had been fired. Trump survived and defiantly signaled to the crowd with the American flag draped behind him in what is now one of the most iconic photos of all time. The shooting tragically resulted in the death of a spectator named Corey Comparator and critically injured 2 others as well. The FBI concluded its formal investigation in November 2025, maintaining that Crooks acted alone, finding no evidence of co-conspirators or foreign influence.
That's the sound of an American oil company. Hard at
Sorry.
work. Want to be a part of it?
Let me skip
Listen
this.
up.
Hello.
Case closed, and let's just never talk about this again. Definitely no cover up going on. They tell us all it was just the most significant Secret Service failure in decades. The other one I could think of, I think, was in 1963, right around then. And that only, changed the entire course of history. But let's talk about the failures. Here's a list of, I think, close to a comprehensive list of the failures from that day. If I missed any, go ahead and add them in the chat below. But let's start with the first. No local law enforcement was on the rooftop used by the shooter.
All right. I'm going to go through this list so I don't get kicked for copyright. Documented Secret Service failures at Butler. Number 1. No law enforcement was on the roof used by the shooter. Obviously, if there's not that many buildings around, and there's a building that has a clear line of sight to the president, you would think, given that we are the most powerful nation in the world, that we would have the resources to put people on those roofs. But apparently, we did not. Number 2, when law enforcement was notified by citizens of the shooter, there was no prompt action at the rooftop to neutralize the shooter. So, the people in the crowd told the cops that there was a potential threat on the roof, and they did nothing. Okay? Number 3, local law enforcement failed to initiate active shooter protocols to protect Trump and the crowd. Well, that's a pretty big screw up, don't you think? If you know there's an active shooter on the roof, why would you allow the president to go on stage in the first place? And why would you not take action to try to protect the crowd? Number 4, there was no apparent communication from local law enforcement to the Secret Service to get Trump to a secure location. Now, I don't know Secret Service protocols, but I would believe that getting the president to a secure location away from an active shooter and to safety would probably be in the top 3, maybe 5 things that need to be done immediately. Yet, wasn't done. Number 5, police snipers on the roof used binoculars to track the shooter's position and did not warn Secret Service below to get Trump off the stage. So the snipers on the roof knew the threat was there, and did not communicate that to the Secret Service to prevent Trump from getting on the stage. Now, that seems like a really, really big screw up. But again, what do I know? Number 6, police snipers under scope vision allowed the shooter to get set and shoot 6 rounds. I actually think it was 8, but I could be wrong. And it says at Trump. Now, John Cullen did a lot of investigation into what happened at Butler. And he was having trouble lining up how Crooks could have taken a shot at Trump from his position, but all the shots into the crowd were a perfect straight line. And it was something that he was stumped on. Again, something else that I allegedly think something else could have happened. Number 7, police sniper got off the scope and looked with the naked eye to be sure the shooter had taken his shots and never looked down at Donald Trump. So you have the threat on one roof, you have the police snipers on the other. He has taken 6 to 8 shots, and the police sniper never looked down to the ground to see if Trump was hit. Well, it's kind of weird. Why wouldn't he see if Trump was hit? Okay. Finally, the police sniper shoots Crooks. Number 9, no local police went up on the roof immediately after Crooks was shot to take away his gun and check on his status. So, police sniper fires a shot, allegedly hits Crooks, and nobody goes up on the roof to make sure he's out of commission and disarmed. Well, that's kind of weird. And the whole time, there was no active shooter protocol, and no warning was given to Trump or the audience. And I'll add a number 11 in here. Up until Butler, none of Trump's campaign rallies had been aired on the major news networks. But Butler was. And it was aired on all of them. And it was live streamed all over the internet. So I won't get into it yet. We'll keep going. Let's go. We'll skip this. Go here. All right.
I think we can say maybe something is afoot. In fact, we actually do know that this is a cover up, allegedly, because right from the get go, the Secret Service was caught in a lie, claiming that the sloped roof used by the gunman had, quote, safety factor considerations, meaning it was too sloped for the Secret Service to be up there safely, which is why they evidently couldn't be up there. Like, come on, that's dumb. Really dumb, especially considering the police snipers, the ones who eventually took out Thomas Crooks, were positioned on a rooftop with a much steeper grade than the building that was supposedly too dangerous for the Secret Service.
When you use Mumu, you turn data into sharper trading decisions. Follow Power Players Trades. And
just a little PSA for everybody, okay? When you see an immediate disinformation campaign like that, you know right off the bat, you are in the midst of a psyop. And a massive cover-up is probably already underway. Speaking of which, let's talk now about this iconic Trump photograph, because for there to be a cover-up, there needs to be something to psyop, which I think is the creation of this larger-than-life leader, an almost godlike figure that people are supposed to worship. Right? Look at this image. You know, the guy, fist raised high into the air, blood on his face. This is the start of a mythos. Because think about it. Why would the Secret Service ever allow Trump to be in that position? Not just to get shot in the first place, but then after he had already supposedly been shot, expose him again. Because what if there was a second shooter? Not smart. Unless, of course, it was staged.
The president's been shot. Oh, no. No. Either that or they're covering. We don't know. Either that or they're covering him. We love you. We love you, President Trump. We love you. We love you, President Trump. We love you. Yes.
You guys see it, right? Why does it look like the flag is being lowered into position just as photographers are being ushered in to take photographs? Right there, no flag, and now there's a flag. Let's look at it again. Okay, there's no flag. Trump has just gotten up from being shot, and now the photographers are being moved into position. At this point, the camera angle basically stabilizes position, and then now you see the flag coming into frame, seemingly held up by this crane that you see in the top right corner of the screen. No flag, and then photographers getting in position, and then flag. I always say that I'm not a conspiracy theorist, even though people like to call me that. But in moments like this, I'm definitely like, there's something going on here. Now,
He's right. There's something going on here, and we're going to tie it all together. And I promise you, when we tie it all together, you're going to be sick to your stomach.
crane owner apparently lost $50,000 as a result of the Trump rally shooting investigation. It says here, the American flag that served as a backdrop for the former president was held aloft by two long boom cranes donated for the event by Mitchell DeLulo, 31, a Butler County small business owner. Since the shooting, Mr. DeLulo has been unable to retrieve the cranes because they are in the middle of one of the most scrutinized crime scenes on the planet. He lost about $50,000 of business as a result. But despite his financial losses, Mr. DeLulo said he was proud to have supported Trump so prominently. Even if this whole ordeal were to put me out of business, I would do it again, he said. I believe in Trump.
Who in their right mind would say, if it had to put me out of business, the small business that I built, that I dedicated my life to, if it came down to that or my business, I would give my business up to do it all over again. Does that sound like something anybody would say? Probably not, right? Let's go to Joe Kent's interview with Tucker Carlson. And let's go here.
We still don't know what happened in Butler. We don't know what happened with Charlie Kirk. And by no means am I saying like, the Israelis did this or any of that, but I'm saying there's a lot of unanswered questions there. And there is enough data to at least say that there's a good chance that President Trump feels like he is under threat.
I don't believe that Donald Trump, well, he may feel like he's under threat, but I don't believe that he felt for 1 second that he was under threat that day.
We're not allowed to ask, basically, was there any linkage between what took place with Asif Merchant, who was recruited by the Iranians to come to America to recruit proxies to kill President Trump. The FBI put a confidential human source at him. All this is public now. This is all out there in the open. And he's arrested. And then 2 days later, a sniper takes a shot at President Trump. We think Merchant and the we know the CHS was talking about the human source that the FBI put at Merchant. They were talking about, hey, we could kill the president potentially with a sniper rifle. But then they arrest him. 2 days later, Butler happens. And Crooks, according to the official narrative anyways, is an enigma. We don't know anything about him. We can't get into his devices. If we did get into his devices, maybe there's nothing there. No more questions are allowed to be asked about Thomas Crooks.
Why are no questions allowed to be asked about the person who allegedly was there to take the life of Donald Trump? Why do we know nothing about him? Why is Corey I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. Corey Compontatori. Why is his wife still waiting for answers? Because she's still waiting for answers as to what happened that day. And she has not gotten them.
The DHS IG is currently being blocked from investigating Butler as well. That's out in the media. That's all well known. Your investigative journalist found that Crooks did indeed have an online persona,
Quite an
online
extensive
footprint,
one.
and he was talking
Yes.
to people. So
Yes.
it's like, why aren't we investigating this? I mean, if
An attempted murder of a presidential
attempted
candidate?
murder of a presidential candidate, and then there's another assassination attempt. There's been multiple public breaches of President Trump's security over the last year. And then, Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way. And we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors. And he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was in the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war. I wasn't particularly close with Charlie. He was very gracious to me when I was running for Congress, very, very supportive. So we knew each other. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing in the stairway. And I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and it's a small, you've been in the West Wing.
Let's go here.
That to me was very surprising. Same thing with Butler. When we first started asking questions about Butler, I thought, because especially that happened under the Biden administration, that, hey, we would come in and we would get the truth because, the previous administration really screwed this thing up. And there just wasn't curiosity there. There wasn't curiosity and there wasn't a tolerance whatsoever for us going after just the key questions of like, hey, did the informant that you had that was interacting with this guy, Rashad, was he in communication with anybody in Butler? I mean, basic questions to ask. Again, this is nothing that's going to blow any investigator socks off. Just those basic questions. Like, no, the two aren't related. Like, you can't talk about it. You can't ask any of those questions.
So basic questions. The head of counterterrorism was prevented from asking. So why would you want the head of counterterrorism? Why would you not want him snooping around? Well, there's two reasons for that. One, he would instantly know if something was off with the investigation. And two, he knows how the investigations are supposed to get done. So if the FBI was doing things that they either should have been doing or shouldn't have been doing, Joe Kent would have picked up on that immediately. So if the whole thing was staged, you can't have Joe Kent poking around because he'll figure it out pretty quickly. And you can't really have the FBI doing an investigation in case you got a couple people that start to realize that something's not right. So Trump himself shuts the investigation down. Again, very weird. Why would you shut down the investigation into the person that tried to assassinate you? And again, we are left with only two possible solutions to that. One, you were never under threat and you were never going to be assassinated that day, and you know it, so there's no point in looking. Two, you don't want anybody else to come to the same conclusion. So you shut down the investigation completely. Now I'm going to go back to James Lee's video here. And this is what led me down this path. Okay.
The current non-Jewish Messiah was chosen to be of service to the Jewish people and the Jewish Messiah. President Trump's right ear was grazed in a symbolic gesture of Exodus 21:6, where the Torah states that a servant who wants to remain with his master needs to have his right ear pierced.
Exodus 21:6. A servant that wants to remain with his master needs to have his right ear pierced. Okay. We're getting somewhere. We are getting somewhere. If you guys got that tinfoil, right now would be the time to make that hat and put it on your head. Because this is about to get crazy. Exodus 21:6. Then his master must take him before the judges. He shall take him to the door or the doorpost and pierce his ear. Then he will be his servant for life. This verse is part of the Old Testament laws about Hebrew servants, offered indentured servants due to debt. Normally, such servants was to be released after 6 years. However, if the servant willingly chose to stay with the master, often because of loyalty, family ties, or security, this ceremony formalized that decision. Before the judges, the decision was made publicly and legally, not privately or by force. Pierce his ear with an awl, a physical, permanent mark showing voluntary, lifelong service. Key idea: the law emphasizes voluntary commitment, not forced slavery. The servant had the right to leave, but could choose lifelong service out of devotion or circumstance. It's tinfoil hat time. Now, everybody has speculated that Trump is being blackmailed, which he may be. But everybody is coming around to the idea that he is doing Bibi's bidding. Now, if you're Bibi and you have Trump agree to do whatever is needed to serve your agenda and advance your mission, how do you convey that to the people in your party, your religious leaders, the people in your cabinet? Would they take your word for it if you were Bibi? Probably not. A tape recording could be fake. It could be leaked. Could start a whole scandal. A public display of devotion. Trump, who is supposedly getting fired at, supposedly gets grazed in the right ear. So, in reality, Trump enacted Exodus 21:6 in front of the entire world. All the religious leaders in Israel would have seen it. All of the cabinet members of Bibi would have seen it. The political party of Bibi, the would have seen it, the Likud party. The entire Knesset would have seen it. And they follow the Old Testament, which is Exodus. And like that rabbi said, we could put him on again, and I will play him again. With that being said, shots go off. Secret Service, get on Trump. We all know there's no damage to Trump's ear. Blood capsule gets popped in the vicinity of the right ear. And you have now conveyed the message to everyone in Israel that needs to know that Trump is ours. He has agreed to it. And that is him signing the deal. Unfortunately for Corey and the other two people that were shot, Corey lost his life. And it wouldn't surprise me if Corey was shot on purpose. He was a firefighter. He was an American hero. He was somebody that the people would rally behind. Figures that an American hero would get shot, right? Allegedly. All allegedly. Now, obviously, Donald Trump had to agree to this. And for him to agree to this, there has to be something significant. And I mean significant. Hanging over his head. Thought it could be a sexual scandal. I don't really think so. He's faced them head on. I don't really think that Trump is a pedo. I don't see it, man. I just don't. I don't think that's it. Let's go back to 9/11. And the 5 Israelis that were arrested because they were seen filming the towers burning and celebrating. They were held for 90 days and then they were released and went back to Israel. Obviously, our greatest ally had knowledge that the attacks were happening. And 26 years later, nobody believes the official story of 9/11. What if Israel had proof that Dick Cheney and George Bush really were the ones behind 9/11? And they were the ones that either caused or allowed those towers to come down, cost the lives of all the people at the trade centers, used it as a pretext to invade Iraq and Afghanistan. All of the service members' lives that were lost, that suffer with PTSD, that suffer with addiction, that went through the divorces. What if Israel has proof that we did it? Undeniable proof. What do you think would happen to our country if that got out? I want you to think about that for a second. If it got out that our president and our vice president were responsible for over 3,000 deaths at the World Trade Centers, they lied to us about why we went into war. We lost all those soldiers in the global war on terror. And it was all based off the lies of Dick Cheney and George Bush. The entire bin Laden narrative is bullshit. You think that is enough blackmail to make a president subservient to our greatest ally? Because what would happen if that got out? I'm almost 40. I know 9 people that died that day. If my father died that day, I can't tell you what I'd be doing if I found that out. If I was a soldier in the global war on terror and that came out, I can't tell you how I would react. I could tell you that it would rip this country in half. It would rip this country in half, and politicians would have targets on their heads. And people would snap. And civil society would break down. I can't think of another thing that could be held over Donald Trump's head that would make him do the things that he is doing right now other than that. I pray that I am wrong. I pray that I am wrong. But if you go from start to finish and you look at everything that's gone on, Butler, all the failures, Charlie Kirk, the war in Iran, to me, that's the only thing that makes sense. And I have been wrestling with making this video for a while. But it's driving me crazy. And I need to see what other people think. Because in my heart of hearts, that is what I think is going on. And that is what I think our greatest ally is holding over Trump. Because if that ever got out, we wouldn't have a country anymore. And I pray it's not true. And we'll probably never find out. But if you think about the events and how they've gone on, can you think of anything that makes more sense than that? Because I can't. So I'm going to post this video on YouTube and hope it doesn't get taken down. And I hope you guys watch it and share it and share it and share it and share it. And let as many people see this as possible. Because if that is what's going on right now, our country has a reckoning coming that I don't think any of us are prepared for. And some of you may call me crazy. Some of you may agree with me. I don't really care. This is just what's sitting on my heart. And the fact is, once the veil is lifted for you and you can see the truth for what it is, you can't unsee it. And I can't unsee this. I've played it through in my head 100 times. And every time I come back to the same conclusion, that this is what's going on. Let me know what you think in the comments. Share this video. This is probably the most important video that anybody will ever watch. Share it, comment, get it out there, let people see it, and let people decide what they think. And I pray to God that I am wrong. But my heart is telling me that I'm not. I love all of you. I hope you guys watch this all the way through. I'm sorry that this is how this video has come to an end. And at this point, the only thing in the world that gives me solace is the fact that I know Christ is King. This book has already been written, and we know how it ends. I love you guys. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. And I will see you next time.